How's it going?
Good evening, everyone. It is finally the day. Hello, Dip is contributing by scratching his scratching post. Thank you, sir. Very important contribution. It is finally Alien Day. I know you have all been waiting for today. I know I certainly have. It appears that in Mexico they have 2 bodies of aliens. That's crazy, right? We're going to get into it. We're going to see if it's legit. We're going to see if it's real. We have some questions that need to be answered. And we will unpack all of that stuff. No pun intended, because they did come out in little boxes. We are going to talk about Elon Musk not actually saving the world from World War III. It turns out that his biographer was wrong or lying. We'll see what the Rolling Stone has to say, because they appear to be one of the only places that is covering this actual story that came out about 8 hours ago. And we're also going to talk about the anti-racist author who thinks that your children should be taken forcibly from you if you do not confirm their crazy ideas, and or if you are a conservative. We will see what I think about that. I bet you a nickel that I don't like that. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Lori. Hello, Whisper. Carter is even in the chat, raining all over our parade, saying that aliens are not real. Yes, holy-ish, it is in fact Carter. Happy he could join us, if only for a moment. We will talk about things generally that are going on, but speaking of aliens, so yesterday one of the things that I unfortunately discovered for sure is that I will probably be required to give birth at 37 weeks, which puts me, instead of October 23rd, closer to October 15th. So that's going to be exciting. That puts everything on a little bit of a tighter timeline than I had anticipated. As far as budgeting and stuff, I think we have everything we need. I think we're ready to go. I did want to do some other stuff with like maintaining the cars or whatever, but not a big deal. I think we should have everything that we need as far as the baby goes. Everything else can wait. Obviously, the baby is the most important thing. My only concern is possibly having to spend some time in the NICU. If you guys aren't familiar, that is the neonatal intensive care unit. So, yes, I possibly required to give birth that early because I have some labs, some liver enzymes. They're a little bit out of whack, and my blood pressure has been right on the verge of being high this whole time, pretty much. So we'll see what the doctors want to do, but they have been drip feeding me this information. Well, it might be 37, might be 39, and then yesterday they were like, yeah, it's going to be 37. So exciting. That puts us on a really tight timeline. That gives us only about 3 weeks to get our acts together. And try and make sure we have the house ready for whoever wants to come and help us. We have 3 different people who might want to come in and give us a hand with things. We'll see what I'm feeling up to. I might not feel up to anything. I might just want it to be just me. I might not really want any company for a while. We'll see what happens. So exciting times. Very exciting. Good news. Did you guys see that Danilo Cavalcante was pictured in his mugshot hours after the fugitive murderer was nabbed in the woods following a 2-week manhunt by a hero canine called Yoda, who found him? Good stuff. Very happy they found him in Pennsylvania. He was just out wandering around for 2 weeks. They were shutting everything down because they had no idea where he was. He escaped by an act of incompetence. He crab walked up a wall. It was wild. The footage was crazy. He apparently was the right height that he could canoodle his way up between 2 different walls and pop over the roof, which was really interesting to watch. But he made it out, and the person who allowed that to happen obviously was fired. So let's see how PA adjusts the way that they take care of their prisoners down in Pennsylvania. He was not looking good after he was nabbed. I saw some pictures where he was being posed with like a hunting trophy, and I thought that was fantastic. He is 100% nabbed, and I appreciate that. All right, you guys, let's get into it. Let us talk about the aliens. I am excited to talk about that for sure. This first one from the whole Mars catalog. It has a fact check on it, so we're going to look at the fact check for sure. The bodies of 2 dead aliens have been unveiled in Mexico. Now, I don't speak Spanish, so we're going to have to see what the note has to say. This is a really interesting video. I don't know, I'm sure you guys have seen these images if you're on Twitter. I don't know what to make of these, right? They look little, tiny, very old things. Somebody compared them to Dianne Feinstein, which I think was high praise as far as they go. But let's read the community notes. You can see his weird little face here. It looks like E.T., right? A lot like E.T. Like the really long head, the really small face, big eyes, weird forehead. Literally just like something straight out of an alien movie. And that, I don't believe it. So let's see what the reader's note has to say. The mummies shown in the video lack peer review and were solely tested by the Autonomous National University of Mexico. Mr. Massoun, the presenter, has made these claims before with the Peru mummies in 2017, which was later debunked as human children. So, first of all, cringe. That's not very nice to do with dead bodies. So this expert has been forced to testify under oath. So let's read a little bit about that, because I don't know anything about this guy. I think most people in the U.S. don't. His name is Massoun, Jamie Massoun. He has previously been associated with claims of discoveries that have been debunked, and this is what they're kind of throwing at him. I gotta be honest, I can never tell if Matt Walsh is being serious. I'm not really convinced that he believes in aliens, because he's not really doing the typical due diligence that he tends to do. But let's read a little bit. Alleged non-human alien corpses have been displayed in two Mexican politicians at the country's Congress. Sorry guys, I don't have my glasses today. The two small alleged alien corpses retrieved from Cusco, Peru, were presented in a windowed box in Mexico City on Wednesday, stirring excitement within the UFO conspiracy theorist community. Well, I don't know if it's still a conspiracy theory if you can actually see little aliens lying on the paper, right? I don't know. It sounds a little bit pointed for people who have evidence right in front of their own eyes, if that is what these little things actually are. The event was spearheaded by journalist and ufologist, there you go, Jamie Massoun, who testified under oath that the mummified specimens are not part of our terrestrial evolution, with almost a third of their DNA remaining unknown, reported Mexican media. Hell Saint, thank you for your super chat. Says alien time. That's right. It's always alien time, but today just happens to be officially Alien Day with actual little tiny alien bodies. The claims by the self-claimed ufologist have not been proven, and Mr. Massoun has previously been associated with claims of discoveries that have later been debunked. At the public hearing, Mr. Massoun said the U.S. officials and members of the Mexican government several videos of UFOs and unidentified anomalous phenomena before unveiling the alleged alien corpses. Ooh, interesting. Yes, Martin points out Jamie Massoun has been exposed in the past for manufacturing evidence. Yeah, exactly. And that's what the Independent is pointing out too. He said these specimens are not part of our terrestrial evolution. These aren't beings that were found after UFO wreckage. They were found in diatom, algae, mines, and were later fossilized. Interesting. If they are in fact fossilized things, whatever they are, that would make them harder to identify or sequence as far as DNA goes, I imagine. Mr. Massoun told attendees that specimens had been studied by scientists at the Autonomous National University of Mexico, who were able to draw DNA evidence using radiocarbon dating. I don't even know if that's something that you can do, because I'm familiar with radiocarbon dating, and I was not aware that that was something that you could use on DNA strands. Not sure. I feel like there's a lot to learn here. After comparisons were made to other DNA samples, it was found that over 30% of the specimen's DNA were unknown, he said. Oh my. X-rays of the specimens were also shown during the hearings, with experts testifying under oath that one of the bodies is seen to have eggs inside, while both were said to have implants made of very rare metals like osmium. Interesting. Ryan Graves, American for Safe Aerospace Executive Director and former U.S. Navy pilot, was in attendance, having earlier this year told U.S. Congress of the threat that unidentified aerial phenomenon posed to U.S. national security. Mr. Massoun had previously been associated with claims of alien discoveries that have later been debunked, including 5 mummies found in Peru in 2017 that were later shown to be human children. Again, kind of macabre and a little bit dark. Don't love that, but what do you guys think? I'm not convinced. You guys are smart. Martin says he didn't present this mummies as aliens, but get this, as part of the human evolution process while saying they're 1,000 years old. Yes, that was the other thing. They're extremely old, so I don't know what that would do to their DNA either. Bridget says, you're nesting. How cute. I don't know that I'm nesting. I feel like my house is still in the typical state that it always was, which is not exceptionally clean. I'm not exceedingly discriminating when it comes to cleaning. I just make sure that things are clean enough to use. And right now I cannot even bend over. So if something falls on the floor, it is dots for the taking because I typically can't get it. I keep telling Andy I need one of those reachers. And I did get those small broom with like an upright dustpan. That helps a lot. I'm able to pick up a bunch of stuff with that. But not nesting yet. I wish I were. Anyway, the overwhelming consensus on these little alien things is that those MFs are not real, but could be wrong. Could be wrong. We'll see what happens. We'll see if people come out and argue in favor of this new finding. I personally am not convinced. But I want to talk about not aliens. I'm going to talk about Elon, alien, same thing basically at this point. And I'm going to start with this tweet that I put up a little bit ago. I'm going to switch this over here. Thus far, we have learned that Elon Musk did not deactivate Starlink before Ukraine could fire on Russia, correctly sized up Bill Gates as an a-hole, and shot down Sam Bankman-Fried's offer to buy Twitter. One shudders to imagine. Elon appears to be a good judge of character. Now, I say this knowing his taste in ladies is questionable at best, especially given people like Amber Heard. But I suspect that some of them, like Grimes, have unplumbed depths. Like, we don't know what's so great about them. I personally just don't know much about Grimes at all, other than those really weird pregnancy pictures she took with their latest child. I think that was their latest kid, though. I think it came out in his biography that he has 2 other kids with her that he didn't tell anyone about, which was kind of surprising. I didn't know that, but I have a growing amount of respect for celebrities who are able to keep their personal lives private. Like, for example, Lindsay Lohan, she got married, nobody knew. Then she had a kid, nobody knew about that either. And she finally decided to tell the world about it, and she seems very happy in that position as a mom and a wife, so good for her. What are you eating? What are you eating down there? Dot's eating something mysterious. Let's read this Rolling Stone article about what this biographer got wrong about Elon Musk, because Elon Musk came under heavy fire over this particular interchange he had with Ukraine. So, let's read. Elon Musk biographer walks back claim that Musk secretly sabotaged Ukraine attack against Russia. Musk had pushed back on Walter Isaacson's claim, stating Starlink was never activated along the Crimean coast where the thwarted attack was to occur. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this attack. I wrote a little blurb about it. In fact, let me see if I can pull that up since we're here. This is before I knew that this did not actually happen. I was just talking about some of the breakdown about Elon Musk saving the world, so-called, right? Let me see if I can find it. Come on, man. How Elon Musk saved the world, maybe. A soon-to-be-released biography about eccentric business magnate, as he refers to himself, Elon Musk, documents steps taken by the South African billionaire to ensure that Ukraine would not be able to strike a Russian naval fleet. The story, as relayed by CNN, which is drawn from the biographer's account, which apparently is not correct, so we'll get to that, is as follows. Musk told engineers to cease operations of Starlink networks last year near Crimea to ensure that a planned subterfuge attack by Ukraine would fail. Apparently, armed Ukrainian drones were approaching the Russian fleet when they fell into the water and, quote, washed ashore harmlessly, according to biographer Walter Isaacson, an action that apparently left Ukrainian officials demanding Elon Musk return operability to the network. Operationality. Ukrainian officials snapped back on Thursday following CNN's rather explosive coverage of this news. Mikhailo Podolyak, I can't pronounce Ukrainian words. This is spelled Podolyak, per his ex, formerly Twitter biography, the, quote, advisor to the head of the office of President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, groused that, quote, as a result of Elon Musk's decision to withhold Starlink abilities from the military operation, civilians, children are being killed. This is the price of a cocktail of ignorance and big ego. Won't someone think of the children, he pleads. Where have we heard this before? But per the book, Musk had spoken to senior Russian officials and later reported fearing what he called a mini Pearl Harbor should Russia respond to the Ukrainian sneak attack with a nuclear weapon, and Elon Musk was exceedingly wary of entangling his technology with weapons of war to begin with, as is also disclosed in the Simon & Schuster biography due to be released September 12th. It already sounds like it will be worth a read, and I think that was what the biographer was going for, which makes it especially interesting that he now is changing his story. Very, very interesting. Since this news came out, Elon Musk has taken a ton of heat from some of the biggest names in the U.S. So Elizabeth Warren is trying to bring immense pressure on him for his crime of providing a country at war with Starlink. And she really wants to take him to task for it. And we'll get details of that in a minute. Let's read a little bit more about this book itself. Walter Isaacson, author of the new Elon Musk biography, has walked back his explosive claim that Musk ordered Starlink engineers to cut off internet connectivity to thwart a Ukrainian attack on Russia's naval fleet last year. The claim, which first emerged last week ahead of the biography's publication, originally stated that in March 2022, Musk told his engineers to turn off Starlink's connectivity along the Crimea coast. Musk had allowed Ukraine to use Starlink, which is operated by his company SpaceX, for satellite internet after Russia invaded a few months prior. The book stated that the Ukrainian drone subs rigged to blow up the Russian ships lost connectivity and washed ashore harmlessly after Musk made the call. So they're using the same quote from the same CNN article I referred to. Isaacson wrote that Musk's decision was born out of a fear that the attack would lead Russia to retaliate with nuclear weapons. Yes, that's my understanding too. The excerpt raised major concerns about the extent to which Musk may have been using Starlink to meddle in the war, but Musk also quickly pushed back on Isaacson's characterization of the event. On Twitter, he claimed Starlink was never activated over Crimea. Now that is a big detail. He also claimed there was an emergency request from government authorities to activate Starlink all the way to Sevastopol, the obvious intent being to sink most of the Russian fleet at anchor. If I had agreed to their request, the SpaceX would have been explicitly complicit in the major act of war and conflict escalation. But he didn't, it sounds like. In response, Isaacson also offered a correction on how his book portrayed the incident. He wrote, "The Ukrainians thought coverage was enabled all the way to Crimea, but it was not. They asked Musk to enable it for their drone sub-attack on the Russian fleet. Musk did not enable because he thought, probably correctly, that would cause major war." He later posted, "Based on my conversation with Musk, I mistakenly thought that the policy to not allow Starlink be used for any attack on Crimea had been decided on the night of the Ukrainian attempted sneak attack that night." Great editing, Rolling Stone. He now says that the policy had been implemented earlier, but the Ukrainians did not know it, and that night he simply reaffirmed the policy. Okay, I see how it is. Makes sense to me. And it also kind of makes sense that there was a little bit of a miscommunication between Elon Musk and the biographer. According to CNN, Simon & Schuster, publisher of Isaacson's new book, said future editions of the biography will be updated to reflect the actual events. Isaacson's book does describe how conflicted Musk was that his company's technology was being used to launch the attacks. "How am I in this war?" Musk asked Isaacson. "Starlink was not meant to be involved in wars. It was so people could watch Netflix and chill and get online for school and do good, peaceful things, not drone strikes. Unfortunately, when you create a tool like Starlink, people are going to use it for whatever ends they think are necessary. And sometimes they're going to think those ends are going to mean killing other people, much as it sucks. In fact, it's a little bit naive to hope that it would only ever be used for stuff like Netflix and studying. But, we can dream, right? He also hopes it will be able to put people on Mars, so who knows what he thinks next. Let's see. Ronan Farrow of The New Yorker reported last month on Musk's unease over Starlink's role in the war, as well as the U.S. government's efforts to manage the whims of the eccentric billionaire. Pharaoh spoke to a Ukrainian soldier who recounted another instance in which an offensive was stymied because of lost connectivity. We were very close to the front line, the soldier said. We crossed this border and the Starlink stopped working, he added. Communication became dead. Units were isolated. When you're on the offense, especially for commanders, you need a constant stream of information from battalions. Commanders had to drive through the battlefield to be in the radio range, risking themselves. It was chaos. Pharaoh also wrote about how Musk had appeared to express support for Vladimir Putin, reporting that he told U.S. officials that he spoke with the Russian president personally. That doesn't mean that he supports Vladimir Putin in any way, but go off. It's unclear what exactly was informing Musk's approach, but it's becoming apparent since he took over Twitter, now X, that he's been listening to the advice of an array of right-wing influencers. My God. One such influencer with whom Musk regularly interacts, Ian Miles Chong, is a contributor to the Russian propaganda network RT. Last October, Chong advised Musk to take Starlink offline along the front line. I mean, yeah, kind of. Don't blame him for saying that. Might be a good idea to take Starlink offline for their terminals and used on the front lines, Chong wrote in response to Musk, wondering if what he could do to de-escalate the conflict. Could encourage them to reconsider their position on advancing toward Crimea and leading the world further into the brink of total war. I gotta be honest, that stance is not insane, and it would take the Rolling Stone to make it sound like it is. But here we are. Unfortunately, the Rolling Stone is the only outlet really covering this right now, so I figured I would read their article. And indeed, now we have, and now we're all, of course, slightly worse for it, and they are terrible with copy editing, and they need better proofreaders, but we survived. So I just thought that was really interesting, and it made me think about the heavy weight that somebody as smart and as talented as Elon Musk has to face with all of these big projects he's pushing forward. This microphone is killing me. It's driving me nuts. It always pops up when I let go of it, so I constantly have to hold on to it. Oh well. But yeah, so it's got to be difficult. I know. It can't be easy. Heavy is the head, right? Oh, guys, I have a great tweet for you guys. This is from a man who goes by the name Tim Wise, and he is not wise, but he does have a lot of strong opinions, and he really wants to take your children away from you. So here we go. Terrorism, he says, is telling your children that they must believe X, Y, or Z thing, or else they will go to hell and be burned in a lake of fire forever. If you believe and teach that, your kid should be forcibly wrenched from your care and raised by anyone else. Literally, anyone else. I responded, behold, the people pretending to be our moral betters do better, Tim Wise, making fun of the fact that his last name is Wise and he is anything but. He is roundly dunked on. He has 477 comments and only 131 likes. Oh boy, yeah, he is a very anti-white. Joel says, aren't you the weirdos telling children the entire earth is going to burst into flames if their mommy doesn't buy an electric car? Yes, that's exactly who they are. Terrorism, says Proud Daddy 911, is telling kids they can, quote, change their gender while performing mastectomies and castrations, telling them to hate their race or the race of the child next to them, allowing pornographic material to children in the publicly funded schools. If you believe that, your kids, ... should be forcibly wrenched from your cats and raised by anyone else, literally anyone else, which I think is fair for sure. Yeah, my response got more likes than his actual tweet. Let's see. Douglas says, let me guess, the government that kills and imprisons more people than anyone else on the planet are the ones you want to, quote, forcibly wrench children from their parents. And then the flipping off emoji and a GIF that says, you are a bad person. Yes, I think that's fair. This is his biography. Anti-racism educator, so higher education and anti-racism in one nasty little package. Critical race theorist. Yes, that thing you don't understand. And I would add to his biography, insufferably arrogant. My goodness. What the heck? Unfortunately, he's in Tennessee. Oh, Colonel Aureliano Buendia says, DM me if you would like to come give it a shot. What an interesting offer. I can imagine that many parents would be interested to meet Tim Wise if he did intend to come meet people and attempt to take their children from them. I can only imagine how that would go. Pascal Emmanuel says, smartest 13-year-old in the world. Yes. So this is very, very edgy. I don't like edginess. We see it a lot from atheists. They make a lot of the same arguments that have been made against all forms of religion since about 10 AD. And they've all been debunked. They've all been dealt with. No one who believes in any form of faith gives them any kind of stock, nor should they. And yet, atheists remain fully confident they are fully correct and they have nothing to worry about, and they have fully owned all of the religion for forever. They are wrong. I just wanted to tell you guys about that tweet because it really kind of made me mad. I forget what I said yesterday. I made up some kind of silly turn of phrase to point out that something was really bothering me. I think I said chaps my britches or something like that. Yeah, it was wild to me. But I want to switch gears a little bit here and kind of talk about some slightly more applicable stuff that's not just politics. This is cultural stuff in a way that I don't think people realize, right? So this is a really interesting short little video from a guy named David Bell. David is, let's see here who he is. Who are you anyway? His Twitter is an autocracy. Will bore you with tweets on Georgism. Oh boy, scary. X trading view. My pancreas doesn't work. Okay, so it sounds like he has type 1 diabetes. It's possible he has type 2, but that's basically what this video is about. So let's go back to the beginning.
My friends, this is a pumpkin swirl frozen coffee. Who the thought it was a good idea to put this on the menu? Because this drink has 185 grams of sugar in here. How much is it? It's this much. It's 46 teaspoons of sugar. To give you another perspective, the amount of sugar in there is equal to 14 glazed donuts. Plus, there's no pumpkin in here. It's artificial flavors. There's 12 mentions of sugar and high fructose corn syrup in here. There's 930 calories and 194 carbs. 2/3 of us are already type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic. If America runs on this, we're
Right. Thank you for pointing out it is a different guy in the video. That is correct. I think that thumbnail is indeed from someone else. He certainly seems to have more of a tan in the profile picture. This guy is, okay, so this is David Bell commenting as we go. This guy has a TikTok called Flav City. I appreciate what he's doing, and I appreciate that he's putting this on his Twitter timeline as someone who appears to be a type 1 diabetic. I have a huge issue with this because ever since I was small, probably from the time I was about 10, when I was 13 years old, I'll put it into perspective. When I was 13 years old, I was 180 pounds, and my dad took me aside and he asked me how much I weighed. And I told him, and he said, "You weigh as much as your mom should weigh." And I thought, that's not good. So I spent a few years thinking about that, and I was like, okay, how am I going to tackle this? What I'm going to do about this? I don't want to be unhealthy. And especially when you're 13, I really was like, I don't want to be unattractive, right? Puberty's coming up, or I was starting on the verge of puberty. Life was very uncomfortable. I hated everything about myself. I felt like I didn't need one more thing to worry about. And I'm not even going to talk about the transition stuff. That's an aside. I'm, as always, ever eternally grateful that my parents had common sense and never tried to do any of that with me, even though I was very uncomfortable in my skin for a very long time. But one of the things that I noticed, because I did ultimately end up losing and keeping about 50 pounds off, was that you cannot drink your calories. And this is an amazing way to drink your calories. I cannot believe that that drink has 930 calories in it. But when you look at it, it's about this big, right? So it's easy 4 fingers height. To me, it looks like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Starbucks size Trenta. It's the largest size they have. And you can't get a frappe in a Trenta cup, I don't think. That's not usually something that they do for you. You can get iced coffee. You can even get flavored iced coffee in a Trenta cup, but nothing like this thing from Dunkin' Donuts. And the comments on this are really good, I thought. I responded to a few of them because they were interesting. A lot of people that I don't fully agree with, people not really understanding what sugar is or how it works. I had somebody come into my comments and say, if you're in calorie deficit, you can eat this. You eat this at the risk to your own pancreas, and I don't care about calorie deficit. And I say this again as somebody who lost weight, somebody who was into CrossFit, somebody who was working out pretty much every day. And America doesn't run on anything. That's why more than half the country is obese. Yes, this is wild, LMAO. This reminds me of the moment forever ago where someone showed a bad food relative to donuts, and someone was like, this taught me there isn't as much sugar in a donut as I thought. Yeah. Donuts aren't that bad for you is my main takeaway from this. Yes, informational video for sure. Yeah, American coffee is just socially acceptable milkshakes for adults. That is true as well. A lot of this stuff is like really accepted. It's just like, yeah, it's fine. It's your coffee. There's no coffee in this. And there's a lady in here who's offering an alternative to coffee. And I was like, yo, coffee is not the issue here. Coffee has 0 calories in it, right? Coffee isn't the problem. It's all the different kinds of sugar. Probably, I'm sure, seed oils too, although I don't really go off about that as much as they go off about sugar. This is an interesting perspective. Had to say, this kind of reality check, this is the kind of reality check that curbed my libertarian streak. It is very hard to be fully libertarian in a country where we are financially enabling people who live like this, who eat like this, who live like this, to then go in and get stuff like heart valve replacements and other stuff that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we're helping enable that by making it possible with Medicare and Medicaid. I really don't like that. But I think at the end of the day, your bigger issue is going to be with the government programs, not with libertarianism. People should be able to do whatever they want. You want to burn out your heart valves? You want to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars replacing your heart valves because you can't put down the Dunkin' Donuts? Go with God. But I will be darned if I'm going to pay for it. That's not my responsibility. Let's see here. This is why I always drink my coffee black. I said you could literally sweeten your coffee up with straight sugar or sweetened condensed milk and be better off than this. I think that's true. Here's the lady offering the best substitute for coffee, made from dandelion root and chicory root. I gotta be honest, guys. I love coffee. I'm never getting rid of coffee. All the way through my weight loss journey, I continue to drink coffee. I even put cream and some sugar in it, and I made sure that I didn't deprive myself of everything. So I responded to her. I said, dog, the issue is not coffee. There is no coffee in this pumpkin monstrosity. Coffee has no calories in it. Coffee is been proven through many different studies that it's actually really good for you, and it helps women with depression. It has all kinds of positive properties. And Jay points out, ugh, Starbucks would never, right? I said, I don't think he's absolving Starbucks, but this size is only available for certain drinks from Starbucks. None of them are frappes, which is what this amounts to. If America runs on this, we're effed. Yeah, that's true. Man, we can't, it's not possible to run on this. This is not the kind of thing that you need if you're going to go hit the gym, right? You need meat and you need cheese and you need some form of fat. You need some form of protein. And you need to make sure that you're getting enough, but not too much. So you want to be in a deficit. If you are trying to lose weight, if you're trying to bulk, that's a little bit different. You're going to lift heavy, you're going to eat a little bit extra calories, and you're going to gain weight. Great, fine. If you're bulking, awesome. If you're trying to lose weight, either way, you're paying attention to your weight, and you're not going to be drinking stuff like this. Now, I am someone who loves to get whipped cream on your coffee. If I'm going to Starbucks, I'm at Starbucks, it's a treat. I'm getting whipped cream. It's only this much. Whipped cream doesn't have many additional calories in it. It doesn't have a lot of sugar. But again, if you are trying to lose weight, you're going to want to cut that kind of thing out too, for sure, because it's the little things that sneak up on you. Martin says, my coffee is always strong and with nothing in it. That's fine. If you can drink beer, you can drink black coffee. Yes and no. Beer tastes like bread. Black coffee is often very acidic for people who get heartburn. It can be sometimes hard to drink. Caffeine antagonizes adenosine receptors in the brain. From my understanding, if adenosine receptors are what cause you to feel tired, caffeine fools your brain into thinking that you're not tired, which I think is very useful to know. It's probably not a good thing as far as like actually getting enough sleep goes, but here we are. People use caffeine. It's a socially acceptable drug. It's even more socially acceptable than alcohol, and certainly much more socially acceptable than other stuff too. Excuse me. Martin says, I used to drink my coffee too sweet. Then I decided to cut on sugar. After 2 weeks of sugarless coffee, I don't like the taste of sweet coffee anymore. I certainly love at least... Okay, so in order to do that, right? My dad is a super coffee snob. You have to have really high quality coffee, and then you can drink it black. And it's not a big deal. And you make it just to your taste, not too strong, not too weak. I find that with coffee, you need something to bounce the flavor off of. For me, it needs some kind of sounding board. It needs a reflector, like something sweet or something creamy, either way. For a while, I put Nutella in my coffee for a little while, and that was actually very good. I have heard of putting peanut butter powder in your coffee. To me, that just sounds crazy. Anymore, if I want to put something in coffee, usually I'll put a little scoop of sweetened condensed milk in my coffee, because that is both cream and sugar, or some half and half and a little bit of sugar. But I think that coffee is one of those things that could and should be sacred, and it shouldn't be something that you give up, because part of the reason that people fail on their diets is because they eliminate everything worth living for from their diets, and then they're like, this is awful, I quit, there's no way I can ever make this happen. You can find compromises. You can still find ways to eat the things you love, either in smaller doses or in changed ways that are more adapted to, for example, low carb. Now, low carb, high fat was the way I lost weight. It wasn't quite keto, but I paid very close attention also to counting calories, which honestly, calorie deficit is the only way to go. So you got to go out, you got to figure out what your baseline calorie use during the day is, just like living, what your organs need to function, how much you require to run your brain, etc. And make sure that you're eating less than that. And it actually is that simple. But when it comes down to it, going through the motions every single day is challenging. I get it. I totally do. And a lot of people struggle with that. And it's no joke. But if you want to prolong your life, it is the way to go. I know that for a lot of guys, intermittent fasting works really well. So then they add more sugar, etc. What's Sarenko talking about? That's a big thing with standard American diet, SAD. Too much sugar leads to sweet things not tasting as sweet. That's right. One of the things I noticed when I was losing weight was that my sense of taste for sugar was very much lost. And then when I would eat something like, for example, sweetened condensed milk, it was horrible, overwhelmingly sweet, way too much. And I could go with like 1/3 or 1/8 of what I used to like. And I like that. I view that as a win. The other thing that people who do really low carb diets notice is that when they go back to eating some sugar sometimes, it really upsets their stomach, because they have reset their microbiome to expect and to be ready to deal with very low carb, high fat foods. Again, I view that as good. I think that's the way it should be, and you should keep the memory of an upset stomach and like the sugar crash in mind for next time you feel like, oh, I just have to have whatever, a ham and cheese croissant or whatever. Travis says, I do a 24-hour fast Monday through Friday, maximum 500 to 600 calories a day. It's rough, but the weight's falling off, and then I eat and drink whatever I want every week. Well, with that, you want to make sure that you can make it sustainable. That is indeed rough. So it might really help if you choose to do something that extreme. Make sure you're getting enough of the right nutrients. Make sure you're not starving yourself and your muscle. You do want to be losing fat, because it is possible to be skinny fat. That's one of the things they discovered with Ozempic, was that people were losing weight, but it was coming from their muscle. It wasn't coming from their fat. So that by the time they lost a bunch of weight, they still had the same percentage of body fat, which was just crazy to me. But I really like talking about this stuff. I find it very interesting, and I think that Americans really need a kind of hard reset when it comes to sugar, because it is addictive. Sugar actually is addictive, and I'm sure you guys all know this because you're very smart. But they found with rats were more willing to do more insane things for sugar than they were for cocaine and other actual addictive drugs. But for whatever reason, we haven't really gotten into how addictive sugar is. And the other thing, too, is that corn is in everything. And one of the forms of corn that we consume in most things is corn syrup, right? Really, really bad. Doesn't work, but it's in everything because they got those sweet, no pun intended, corn subsidies. And here we are. And it's really, really not helped. Whisper says, I'm a bad girl. I eat what I want when I want. Yeah, so the other thing, too, I think is that when you're pregnant, things are a little bit... They're actually tighter because you can't have sushi and you can't have deli meat and you can't have all this other stuff. And they want you to restrict your caffeine intake, which is torture for me. But you should kind of go with what you want to do because you want to get the right amount of calories to serve your baby and you. As long as you are keeping track of how fast you're gaining the correct amount of weight. I've been very lucky. I haven't gained a whole huge amount of weight. Once I came off that MS medicine, man, for the first trimester, I actually lost quite a few pounds because nobody believed me, but it was the medicine. And I came off and I was like, wow, look at that. I'm just back to the way I always used to be before. But I've been steadily gaining the right amount of weight. And I think I've gained a total of about, I want to say 25 to 28 pounds by this point, which is more or less exactly where you're supposed to be toward the end of the third trimester. But obviously we'll see how it all comes off after the fact. But then with breastfeeding, you run into additional problems. So who knows? Really just figure out what you should be eating for where you are in life. And if that means eating whatever you want because you're pregnant and you have cravings, fine, because I know that some women have a really hard time keeping anything down at all. And that is no joke. You got to stay nourished. You got to do it for your baby too. I do have good news out of Florida. I know, shocking. Florida's full of good news. Florida's vaccine skeptic Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo is warning everyone under 65 against getting new COVID booster vaccines. Yeah. Dr. Joseph Ladapo said Florida does not recommend new boosters for under 65s. His recommendation goes directly against new CDC guidance. I love it. I'm here for it. Let's get more of this. Florida's Surgeon General has said state health officials will warn everyone under 65 against getting the new COVID booster vaccine. Joseph Ladapo, who was accused of promoting faulty vaccine data last year, claimed today that there is a complete absence of figures about whether the updated vaccines work. Now, who are you going to trust? The Surgeon General of Florida or the CDC? The choice is yours. I'm just presenting the evidence to you. Joseph Ladapo, who was handpicked by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, also promoted the false claim that there was not a drop of clinical trial data supporting the vaccines. Now, I don't want to nitpick the Daily Mail, but they have recently come under intense scrutiny for being exceedingly pro-Ukraine, even at the expense of their journalistic integrity. And I will continue to use them because I appreciate the way they're organized, but I want to remind you guys, they're not perfect. No journalistic outfit is, but here we are. Speaking at a vaccine panel today, Dr. Ladapo said, I just think that at this point, with the amount of immunity that's in the community, virtually every walking human being has some degree of immunity. Yeah, it's been 3 years, guys. Pretty sure we all got some. And the questions we have about safety and about effectiveness, especially safety, in my judgment, is not a good decision for young people and people who are not at high risk at this point in the pandemic. Yes, correct. 100%. Absolutely. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. I'm just incredibly glad that Florida is saying this. I'm really glad that Florida is the only state in the country that has banned, let's see here, gain-of-function research, mRNA in vaccines, and lockdown mandates. All three of those things are banned in Florida pretty much for good until whenever we next get a Democrat governor. We'll see what happens as far as that goes. But I feel like we can leave the Daily Mail's commentary after that because I'm sure they're going to spring off into talking about Governor DeSantis. Doesn't matter. I appreciate what Joseph Ladapo was saying. I think that we had him on Timcast IRL, or we were planning to have him on when we ended up leaving. I don't remember. I remember that was something I was working on over there, which was very cool. I was very excited to have him. But unfortunately, I can't remember all of my guests. What the heck? Oh, well. Anyway, I just wanted to let you guys know that. I saw there was a city in Texas who was pushing similar stuff through, saying that they will not be allowing any kind of lockdown mandates. Oh, I want to talk about... Oh, yeah. Okay, hold on. Speaking of different states, and... there we go. Different states and over in there in the Midwest. Daily Mail, yes. Daily Mail, read with caution. As you're complaining about the Daily Caller, I get a Washington Post ad, SMH, Daily Mail. It is Daily Mail. Sorry, guys. YouTube is adding ads in a different way. I apologize if it interrupts anything. Okay, so let's see what the Firearms Policy Coalition is saying today. Yeah, they retweeted this. Today, a judge temporarily blocked sections of our public health order but recognized a significant problem of gun violence in the state. I refuse to be resigned to the status quo, and I will never stop fighting to prevent other families from enduring these tragedies. Ha, 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 ha. Gotcha, B-word. Serves you right. LifeNews.com says you oppose killing children with guns but support killing children with abortions. Hypocrite. Phil, who is an outspoken libertarian, says the right of the people to keep and bear arms is not a second-class right. You do not have the authority to prohibit speech, and as such, you do not have the authority to prohibit the exercise of the right to carry a weapon. That is for sure true. Here is the list. This is Siraj Hashmi. He puts particularly egregious tweets on a list for every week. And here he is handing Governor Lujan Grisham an L, putting her on the list. And here is the Norman Rockwell painting, and it just says resign, which I appreciate. Redheaded Libertarian says, Governor Karen, the absolute tyranny you have attempted over the citizens of New Mexico violates both the U.S. Constitution and your own New Mexico Constitution. You absolute demon. Yes, Adolf would be proud reading her order, 100%. Here it is. It's the U.S. Ministry of Truth, and it is an L. So take the L. An L is a loss. Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions. Indeed. Dana Lash comments, how can you never stop fighting when you never started? You were fine with criminals preying on innocents when Democrat DAs were dismissing repeat offenders' cases, right, ignoring misdemeanors, and using tax money needed for enforcement on Planned Parenthood, because of course they were. You circumvented constitutional rights and have been roundly condemned by everyone, including your own party. That's true too. Yeah. I have more and more respect for Dana Lash every day. I did not know much about her before this, but I do now, and I appreciate this. This just in, get wrecked for sure. Why don't you increase judicial capacity so cases can be processed quicker? What's wrong with more magistrates? Increased prosecutorial capacity and jail/prison capacity. Why won't you do that? Why are there so many outstanding felony warrants in the first place? These are great questions that she will never answer because she's running into the exact same problem that they ran into in California, which was that by choosing not to prosecute these crimes, they ended up with a whole ton more of them than they would have otherwise had. And they looked around and they're like, oh my gosh, people are dying by gunfire. It's truly terrible. Everyone's in an incredible state of fear all the time. Everyone's terrified to leave their homes. What is going on here? We have to do something about this. Let's declare a state of emergency and take power and see what happens after that, instead of actually just prosecuting the crime like they're supposed to. See, prosecuting crime isn't glamorous, right? When you bring in a Soros DA who doesn't want to do any of that, and you tie your campaign to a lot of those kinds of promises, like we won't put many people in jail, we'll let more people off the hook, we'll do this cashless bail or whatever they call it. Yeah, no, those may be campaign promises, but those promises actively hurt people. Yes, the silly people who vote for you will be hurt by your policies, and especially when you push people who are easy on crime. If you are going to have laws in your state, you need to enforce them. Now, I say this as someone whose spouse is an anarchist, so I understand. He would probably say this is not something that should be dealt with at the state level. That's fine. I'm just saying, if we already have laws, then we need to enforce them. We have an ethical obligation to do so, and if we don't, the blood of the people who die because of our negligence is on our hands. Emergent Perspective says, in other words, you violated your oath of office and you lost. You are also under threat of impeachment. Your only talent is making a complete lack of reasoning sound like a compassion to low information supporters. And here we have a headline. New Mexico officials call for the governor's impeachment after firearms restriction. Well, we'll see what happens. You need to be removed from office ASAP. I believe it's a fully controlled, a Democrat-controlled state, but we'll see what happens. Governor, I need your help. I walked outside and tried banning clouds today, but they just kept floating there. Yeah, guess you found out the Constitution is still the law of the land. Kind of, sort of, to some extent, but this Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, in all the treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Yes, excellent wisdom from years past, and I appreciate it. For sure. Whisper brags. With both of my boys, I only gained like 13 pounds. Good for you. Good for you. I have seen ladies talk about how they gain like 100 pounds, 80 pounds. And I'm just like, woo. And I was concerned that would happen to me. But I was like, okay, what's a healthy amount? What am I supposed to be gaining? They're like, okay, by your third trimester, you should gain between 24 and 30 pounds. I was like, okay, well, as long as I don't go too much over that, who knows? Like I said earlier on, I've always had trouble with maintaining my weight in a healthy manner. So I was like, I'm going to have to keep a close eye on this. Here we go. All right, you guys, we're going to keep it a little bit short tonight. I appreciate you all joining me. It is a light night. I don't care. I'm just glad you guys are all here to hang out with me and Andy, who is technically there. He's still working. SourPatchLyds, aliens are real. They found bodies. That's right. He is sharing my video. Thank you for sharing that on Twitter. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. And guys, every night after the show, I go over to Spotify and I put the audio-only version of this up there so that you can listen while you're doing other things. And I have to say, it's pretty fun to listen to, even though I've heard it before, obviously. I like to listen to myself and see what I can improve on. Make sure I'm conversational, make sure I'm not getting distracted. I'm always getting distracted. That's just the way it is. If you are not downloading the podcast, you should do that if you can't listen during the actual live stream. So I appreciate you all being here very much. I think that tomorrow, we're doing a show tomorrow. Yep, tomorrow's Thursday. Okay, I was thinking tomorrow. I am all scrambled. That appointment yesterday really kind of ruffled my feathers because I was like, whoa, everything's on a much tighter timeline now. So I'm going to keep doing stuff while I still feel like I can and see where we go from there. If I ever just disappear, it's probably because they want me to give birth and that's what I'm doing. And that'll be my task for the day. And then after that, we'll be taking care of this little tiny human, which is going to be quite the learning curve. I'm very excited. I've been reading up on it as much as I can, but it is still intimidating. I have 5 siblings and I was an older sibling to 4 of them. So I know what it's like to have a little one come home from the hospital. It is so exciting. And I see parents, modern parents, talk about how hard it is for children who are already in the family to welcome in a new sibling. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Me and my siblings thought it was amazing and so much fun when we had a sibling arrive, right? I remember when my younger brother came home. I think it was the first one that I remember coming home because after me, there's another girl and then 3 boys. So my parents did 3 girls and then 3 boys, which is honestly pretty impressive and not a bad plan if you're planning on having a bunch of kids to have your girls first. They can help you with that stuff. We're going to find out the baby's gender, and that's going to be crazy. Right now we have green clothes to put them in, and I'm very, very excited to find out which it is. I don't know how to get my mind right. If it's a girl, it's going to be really overwhelming, but boys have a whole different set of issues and a different kind of drama that they bring with them, so wish me the best. It's going to be really fun either way. So yeah, if I ever vanish, that's why. I will probably try to put a note up on the YouTube channel in either case, and then might upload sporadically, not live stream, but upload pre-recorded videos after that for the first few weeks of having a baby. We'll see what happens. All right, you guys, again, thanks for joining. Goodbye, James. Thank you for your good luck wishes. Thank you for joining Texas Rangers. We all always appreciate having you in the chat too. Thank you guys for wishing me luck as I dive into motherhood. I'm very excited for that. All right, you guys, I will catch you all tomorrow. Remember what we say over here. Stay safe, stay well, stay out of target. Until next time. Bye, guys. how's it going?